I don't think they necessarily knew. Lenin points out in his book Imperialism is it holds the productive forces statically. It prevents the productive forces from developing themselves. So it prevents these countries from industrializing their agriculture, getting rid of the peasantry and whatnot, because you just have this like feudal landlord class that's no longer overthrown, that's like backed up by the United States, who's just exports, have transnational corporations export whatever capital they need to extract resources and utilize cheap labor in those countries. And all the wealth, all the surplus of the resources and labor in those countries is going into the profits and expansion of transnational corporations who aren't even based in those countries. So they're not developing their means of production, the things they use to produce and extract materials from the ground in those countries. They're developing things at home and only exporting what they need to suck the wealth out of the target nations. So long story short, it leaves a lot of countries in a semi-feudal situation. Like Cuba, when they had their revolution, were almost in a completely feudal or slave-like situation outside of the cities. And in Cuba as well, similar to Russia, there were communists within the city saying, no, we can't have a revolution. Che Guevara is just an adventurist. Don't listen to him. He wants to organize the peasants, but we need to wait for the proletariat to fully develop and for capitalism to fully develop. And Che was saying, no, you ding-dongs, imperialism is preventing the productive forces in Cuba from developing. So the proletariat's not going to develop normally as it would under, unaltered conditions of capitalism. It's being externally held in poverty by this American ruling class who is allied with the feudal class, the landowning class, and the gangster dictator leader Batista. So we're not going to just have this natural development to capitalism, into capitalism, and the Cuban communists like, oh no, listen to Marx. We're dogmatism is Marxism. We're so smart. And then Che Guevara and Fidel went to the peasants, gave them a bunch of guns, and said, hey, want to overthrow the gangster U.S.-backed dictator and all the landowners who basically own you like slaves. And all the Cuban peasants said yes, and they overthrew the leader, and now they don't have slavery anymore, and they have universal health care. And they built a bunch of hospitals in rural areas that never had health care previously. And gave everyone education and taught everyone to read. And Cuba's freaking awesome. Viva Chavez!